Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Lentiso with Nani and I'm your friend Nani. Guys, if you're here for the first time, please subscribe, like, share and turn on the notification bell so you get notified each time I upload a new video, and you're welcome. Today I bring us another exciting tutorial on how to cut this beautiful top on the screen. Okay, so this top comprises of about 4 different fabrics. So if you're looking at achieving this style in different colorful patterns, you would be needing at least 4 or 3 prints to make this top. So we have the middle piece, the middle pink piece, and the black lace part that is on top of it, then the other lace part, then the part for the sleeve. All right, so now on my pattern, please you try to draft this on your pattern. I have drawn out my lines. That's the shoulder line, the chest line, the bust point, the underbust, the half length, the blouse length, and of course 2 inches hemming allowance. All right, so please, if you want to draft this style, please make sure you draft on your pattern paper first before you transfer to your fabric, because there are things you don't cut directly on the fabric. Now from the center front, I marked out 0.5 inches from the center front. Remember, your fabric or your pattern is supposed to be on fold, so from that 0.5 inches, that would be where I'll be starting all my measurements from. Now if you look at the style I sent to us, you would see that the center front has a division and the center front, so that is for that reason. So I'm marking my neck width and my shoulder measurement and also my neck depth. Then I would connect whatever type of neckline I want. So I'm not saying what I used as a neck depth and the neck width because it is as preferred, but okay, I'll say it. I'm using 3 by 4, or you can use whatever you prefer. Now for the shoulder slope, we will not be doing a shoulder slope yet because we'll be using shoulder dart. So on the chest line, I also mark the shoulder measurement and connect into a straight line. So for now, there will be no armhole and there will be no shoulder slope. Okay guys, so the next thing to do is to determine your bust span. You measure it on your client, or you divide the bust measurement by 10 and add half-inch seam allowance to it. But since you're marking directly on a pattern, you don't need to add the half-inch seam allowance. So on the bust point, I'm marking the bust span, then on the underbust I'm subtracting half-inch from the bust span to mark on the underbust. Now if you be following my tutorials, you know that this is the way I draft my bustiers. All right, so now because of the curve we have on this blouse, I'm coming in out by half-inch, then that's on the blouse length. Then I'll connect the underbust to the bust point, then make a straight or a slant line to the half-inch or 1 inch I came in by the on the hem of the blouse. All right, so you can also decide to mark it directly to the hem of the blouse, just to give that very slanted V-shaped line this dress has. Okay, so you can do this, it is fine. You can do the other one, it is fine. All right, so now we're going to determine what we have on our shoulder, and we have 3.5 after taking out our neck width. So I'm going to be marking half of that, so that's the mid shoulder line. Okay, so I'll connect the middle line to it, or you can come in by half-inch or 1 inch. It depends on what you want to achieve. Okay, so there is really no exact method. You can decide to come in by half-inch, you can decide to come in by a 1 inch, you can even decide to take it directly to the mid shoulder. It depends on what you want. Alright, so I'm just going to be choosing one of these two methods. Right, so on the other side, I'll come up by 1.5 inches from the mid shoulder line. So I'll mark 1.5 inches. Remember, I'm making a shoulder dart. Now on this other part, I said you can come in by half-inch or 1 inch. So I'll be using a different color I'll be using a brown lippy. I'm using the lipstick to draft to show us that. Anyways, I don't want to use the same color of marker so it doesn't confuse us. So from that line, from that point, I connect directly to the bust point. So you could either use half inch or 1 inch. Either way, it gives us almost the same thing, just a little bit. One is a little bit slanty than the other one. All right, so depends on what you want to achieve. All right, so now the other one, remember we went in by 1.5 inches. So I'm going to highlight this middle line, this mid shoulder. That's the mid shoulder line. So from there, remember we marked 1.5 inches, so we'll connect that to the bust point. Remember, this is a shoulder dart posterior, but we're going to have some alterations, a few alterations, just to give us this style that we are trying to achieve. Right, so I'll come to my underbust curve. If you're following me, you know that I work with underbust curves. So I'm working with bust 36, so it means I'll be using 2 inches for my underbust curve. So I'll be using 2 inches here, so I'm marking 2 inches on the underbust. Now remember, if it was a normal shoulder that buster, you mark the same thing on the waistline, but it's not. So I'll just make a curve to the bust point. Okay, you can see the curve for your bust here, or you can also go up by 1 inch from the bust point line, then make the curve from there. Okay, so either way it gives us a very smooth one. So I prefer going up by a 1 inch because it helps to eliminate all those pointy edges. Okay, so you can see coming up by 1 inch, then I'm drafting it. That's eliminated that pointy edge I had initially. All right, so you can see how round the curve at the bust area is now. Okay, so the next thing will be to connect the underbust curve to the slanted line, to the end of the blouse length. So here again, you can come in by half inch, 1 inch, or you can take it directly to where we have the first slant. Okay, so either way, depending on what you really want to achieve. Okay, so half inch, 1 inch, whatever it is you want to work with, but I prefer to have that very slant line that it's on the pattern, on the style we're working on. So I'll just connect it directly to the previous slanted line. Okay, so you can see the twist here. We're not taking it there, we're not taking it down to how we normally do our bustiers. Okay, so this is just the twist associated with this style. All right, so you can see the upper part and the lower part, and that is the style line we're trying to achieve. Now remember that we'll be cutting out this dart. So whichever one you choose to go with, you're going to be replacing the dart. So I'm choosing to work from the one that I used the brown lippy to mark. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be placing my tape from there. So if you want to do it from the first line, you place your tape from there, measure what you have. If you want to start from this other line, which I'll be using, so I'll mark the dart intake there, and it's 2 inches. So I'm going to be replacing that 2 inches. Now remember that when I cut out this dart, I'll be needing half inch on both sides to join, which is 1 inch. So I'll add that 1 inch back. All right, so we are done with the shoulder part. Then to the chest line, I'm going to measure my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 9. So I'm going to measure what I have around the dart area. Okay, so I have about 0.75, so I'm marking 0.75. Then I'll be needing 1 inch to join the pattern together, and that's the 1 inch there, plus our normal sewing allowance of 2 inches. Okay, so I would now curve my armhole. So this is what I'm just doing for the armhole. So remember that by the time you're done joining, you can always draft your armhole. That'll be after doing your shoulder slope, because for now we wouldn't be doing any shoulder slope. All right, so we'll move to the underbust measurement. So the underbust measurement divided by 4 gives us 7 inches. So this is 7 inches there. I would mark 7 inches, plus the 2 inches for the underbust curve. So I'll be replacing the underbust that is the 2 inches. So 1 inch to join the two patterns together. That's then the extra 2 inches normal sewing allowance. So the same thing for the waist. The waist divided by 4 gives us 7.5. Okay, so I'm going to measure what I have as the dart there. I have 1.5. I'll mark 1.5 there, plus 1 inch to join the two pieces together, then our 2 inches normal sewing allowance. All right, so I'm just going to connect that in a smooth curve from the bust, the underbust, and to the waistline. Now to the hip length or the blouse length, I'm going to measure my hip measurement divided by 4. So the hip is 36, divided by 4 gives us 9. Okay, so by the time I cut out this pattern and join together, I'll be needing 1 inch to join that. So that's the 1 inch plus our 2 inches normal seam allowance. So because it's around the hip, I want to add about 2 to 3 inches to make it free around the hip area. So 2 inches is fine. You could also do 3 inches depending on what you want. So I'll be using this side just so that the hip is not so protruded. All right, so that is it. Now remember, I have my blouse hemming allowance of 2 inches. Okay, so I'm going to be making a curve to the lower part because I don't want this lower part to be sharp. I want it to be a bit curved, so I'll just use my pattern maker to make a bit of curve around that place. Okay, so you can see that it's no longer very sharp and straight. It has a smooth curve along the hem. All right, so basically this is what we're just going to be cutting. The cutting is easy, although complicated, but it's easy. All right, so now the next thing to do is to draft the facing for this dress. Okay, so now like I said, I'm going to be needing 4 fabrics for this. The middle piece, okay, this is the middle piece and the side piece. Okay, so you can see the middle piece has a different fabric, the side piece has a different fabric. Now there's also a facing. Okay, so there's also a facing, so you might want to cut out your facing as you are drafting. You want to draft your facing now, or you can draft your facing after cutting out. So I want to draft the facing now so that it doesn't confuse us at the end of the day. All right, so like I said, this fabric has this outfit has 4 different fabrics: the middle piece, the side piece, and the facing. Then also the one that was used for the sleeve. All right, so for our facing now, I'm going to, from the underbust, I'm going to measure around 2.5 inches. Okay, so even on the waistline, or I could just use what I have there already, that my original waist measurement. So from the edge of my shoulder measurement, okay, I'm just going to connect to the 2.5 inches I have on the waistline. So I can just mark 2.5 inches on the waistline. So I'll just connect that. So you can make your facing as wide as you want, or as I'm doing. Then I'm also going to slant it back to the hem of the fabric. So I'll just come in by 1 inch. Okay, if you see the style, you see that it has a bit of space around that place. So I'll just mark 1 inch there. There's 1 inch mark there already. So I'll connect it to the other line. So this will serve as my facing. So you can make yours wider than mine is already, or the way I have just done it. So there are too many lines. I don't want them to confuse us. So I'm just going to also use this lipstick to write that this part is the facing. Okay, so, and I don't want to make too much markings on it. So this is the facing for the side piece. The facing is only for the side piece. There is no facing for the middle piece. Okay, so that is it. I want us to look at the style once more to see what I have done. So this is the style and this is how it is. So we'll start cutting now. So cut from the lower part down to the sides, to the armhole. All right, so now you might want to add your might want to add half inch to the shoulder just to take care of the allowance, the shoulder allowance. But you can also do this after after doing your shoulder slope. So I'm adding it here. If you won't remember to do it after your shoulder slope, you can add yours now. If you would remember it, please do it after doing your shoulder slope, or after doing your shoulder slope, or when you cut out on your fabric, you just add your shoulder joining allowance. Okay, so I'm just going to cut through the actual shoulder. I would leave the shoulder slope because when I'm transferring to my fabric, I would add the same allowance. That is the reason why we are making a pattern, so that by the time you transfer to your fabric, you add the allowances you need. I've added the side seam allowances so that we don't have issues there. Now to the hemming allowance of this blouse, you can just bring down the lines so that you would cut them very accordingly, or you can fold in the hemming allowance and cut. It is that, as in, there are ways around this. So I'm just folding it inside. Remember, I didn't make the markings to the hemming allowance because it's not part of the blouse. It's going to be inside the blouse. So that's why I'm folding it in now, or you can just extend the lines to that place. So I am cutting now. Remember, I'm just cutting through the darts now. Please, I'm going to use this pen to highlight that this is the facing. I'm not going to be writing facing all around it so that you don't cut the facing instead of the dart intake. It is going to make a mess of everything you have done. Okay, so the facing is different from the dart. All right, so I'm cutting through the dart that I have made, the dart that we took. Okay, so we're cutting out the center piece now. Remember, I followed the line I made with the lipstick, so that is the line. That's what I'm cutting out. All right, so that is out. This is my center piece. Okay, this is the center piece. When I open it, you see the V shape that it has. Okay, all right, so you can see that slanted V shape that it has. It's that it's showing on the style. Now this other side is the hemming allowance. Okay, so by the time you tuck that in, you wouldn't see that. Now remember that the center front is supposed to be slashed open. Okay, we're supposed to slash it open, then join with that half-inch seam allowance. You can still see the style on the fabric. You can see it on the style we're working on. The center front, there's a demarcation there. All right, so bringing the rest of the pattern, we're going to cut through the other side of the dart. Okay, so by the time you cut this out, you're going to be adding your wadding, your breast pad. I'm still trying to highlight that this is the facing because I don't want us to mistakenly cut the facing thinking it's the dart, please. Okay, so by the time you cut out the dart, you're going to be using your wadding, either your soft wadding, the medium weight wadding, or your breast pad to interface the bust curve area, just to give the bust an upliftment, and so that the person that is wearing it can wear it with or without a bra, just to pad the bust area. All right, so the dart is out, leaving us with these two side pieces and the center front. All right, so now I'm going to be separating it and show us what we have made. All right, so if you've watched to this part, thank you so much. Please give us a like, share, and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you. All right, God bless you. Okay, so this is the two side pieces, then the center front. Remember that this center front is going to be slashed open. I'm just saying it so that so that it sinks in, like we remember that this is what we're supposed to be doing, because I'm not going to be posting a sewing tutorial for this. Okay, somebody requested this video and that's what I'm making. All right, so you slash the middle open and join it by the half-inch seam allowance that we added there. Okay, so now on your fabric you place the middle piece and add half-inch seam allowance round it. Okay, add your half-inch seam allowance all round it. Then to the other side pieces you also be adding the half-inch seam allowance, because that's what you'll be using to join this. Okay, all right, so then if you be doing this, the 1 inch seam allowance I added after cutting, you wouldn't be needing that on your fabric. You can also leave it to serve as extra seam allowance. You can never be too careful these days. Okay, so we go over to the facing. All right, so I want to use this other part that doesn't have any marking on it to do the facing, so just so that we would see it. All right, so I will just take the measurement of what I have here already and transfer it to the other pattern. So on the upper part I have about 3 inches there, so I also mark 3 inches on this other side piece, so that's 3 inches. Then on the underbust I have at least 2 inches, so I'll just be transferring the facing to this plain side just to show us what we have achieved. Okay, so on the lower part I also take the measurements there, you can see, so I also place it and mark it. All right, so now if you are working on yours, after placing the middle piece and the side pieces on your fabric, you can now cut the facing on this one we've already cut out. Now you can now cut it, then use the facing to use the pattern to draft the facing. You don't need to start doing this that I'm doing now, but I'm just doing this so that I can show us, I can place it on the other piece and show us what the facing is like. Okay, so I'm connecting the points. Then I'm connecting to the lower part. All right. Okay, so that's our facing. So I'm going to be cutting it out now. Okay, so now you can make your facing wider or smaller. You can, you can decide not to make exactly the same style and add some twists to your own, so depending on what you want. All right, so I'll be cutting this out. All right, so this is now the facing, so we'll be using a different fabric. The beauty of this outfit is to use different fabrics to do it. Now you'll be cutting 2 of it, one for the right side and one for the other, for the left side. Okay, so if you use one particular fabric to do this style, you won't see the beauty of it. Now, so what you do is to place the facing on the other side, okay, and stitch it on it. Just stitch it round it. Okay, so you're just going to be stitching this on it. Okay, so you can add your allowances to the sides of the facing. Remember, we'll be adding half-inch allowance around the other patterns to join it, so you also be adding that allowance to your facing and also to the other side to fold it in. So you stitch the facing directly on the fabric. Then by the time you join, you can now use your stone, your pearls, to bring out the design. That is what it is for this style. So this is how to cut this very beautiful style. Then the next thing to talk about is the sleeve of this outfit, and it's a combination of a basic sleeve and a circle sleeve. Okay, it's a bell sleeve. It's called the bell sleeve. That's a combination of a basic sleeve and a circle sleeve. So you draft a basic sleeve. Then for the circle sleeve, you define your round sleeve measurement by 6.28 to get a full flare. So your round sleeve by 6.28 to get a full flare. Then that to get the radius for your flare. Then you add the to you add what you want. Then use fishing line to give it a very curly hem. You take it to the market. So people that do industrial weaving, they would weave the fishing line round the hem of your peplum to give you a very curly hem. Okay, to give you the type of hem we are seeing on this style. Now if you want a really full circle sleeve, you're going to be dividing your round sleeve into 4 to give us a 1440 degree flare. Okay, so let's say that the round sleeve is 14. You divide it by 4. Whatever you have is what you're going to be using. You divide that by 6.28. So your answer divided by 6.28. Okay, so you'll be cutting 4 different circles with the radius you derive. Okay, then join the 4 circles together to get a full flare. Then you take it to the market and they would use fishing line to cut the hem for you. So if you found this video helpful, thank you. Like, share, subscribe.